What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing day 2, rounds 2 and 3 of this 2025 NFL mock draft with trades. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, English, and subscribe. Yes, I do content like this all the time. Below my face is my board. It's going to piss you off, but it's my honest all 22 evaluations. I am not afraid to be completely transparent and honest. I can guarantee you if everybody gave you their genuine, honest board that they were not necessarily curving for the scrutiny, then you'd probably see that quite a lot as well. Let's get into this. We're going to do a quick little recap, talk about the trades. If there are any placeholders, we'll talk about that as well. But it started out with a pretty interesting top 2. It happens, but then we ended up having a trade at number 3 and number 4. The Jaguars moved up, selected Will Johnson. The Patriots got the same guy they were going to get, and then the Raiders traded up with the Jets to be able to select their quarterback, leading to the Jets drafting, again, the same guy would have drafted for them with their first pick. So a couple teams got a couple of freebies, which is always a big plus. We had the Niners move up with the Indianapolis Colts to select Arianti Ursary, essentially jumping their in-division rival in the Seattle Seahawks. So we had that trade back resulting in Nick Eamon-Warry, who is a guy who I wanted to end up featuring. A big trade up was with the Chargers and the Lions. The Lions have been bold before. Last time, I think they were at 31. They ended up trading up to 13 for Jameson Williams. This time, not so much. They ended up trading up to 20 for Nick Scorton. Continuing on, technically, some people were kind of grouchy about the fact that Shedeur Sanders went after Drew Allar. If you honestly want to switch him and Drew Allar, do it. I'm perfectly happy with the Steelers ending up with a quarterback that I have technically higher, but it is what it is. We have a placeholder right here at 26. This is Azariah Thomas, my number 12 player in the class, top tier corner. Very raw, but a great press man corner with elite athleticism out of Florida State. But continuing on, we then ended up having the result of that trade back with the Chargers being Colson Loveland. Let's get on into this. Starting with the 33rd overall pick, we have the Chicago Bears. Chicago ended up drafting an edge rusher in round 1, so of course we're going to focus on the offensive line here in round number 2. Donovan Jackson and Tate Ratledge are the easy selections for me. However, it just seems like a necessity to go after Jonas Savaiinaea here and be able to fill in an interior offensive line spot with a former tackle. If you do think about it, the majority of the offensive line are also tackles kicked to the inside. And after watching Noah Fafita, I realized Jonah does need to go to he needs to go to guard. He hasn't developed enough to be an NFL tackle. So that's going to be a really solid interior offensive line addition. At pick number 34 for the Tennessee Titans, this is where you can start looking at a quarterback. We drafted a tackle in round number 1. And you could talk about Jalen Milroe here, but based on the fact that we lack the quantity of picks, you remember that 3rd round pick went for Snead. I think this is proper time to trade back. Ben Morrison is not coming out in this mock draft. That's going to be one of 2 players that I'm pretty much prohibiting. The other player being Harold Perkins, both of them out on the year with season-ending injuries. So keep that in mind. I'm projecting both of those guys to return. With Emeka Egbuka on the board, it is very hard to say no, but I do think that that also is a reason for teams to move up. And there are a couple of teams that are looking for another wide receiver. I want to double check what we did with the Saints. I think they went after T-Mac at 6, which, that makes sense. Otherwise, I'd move up with the Saints right now. I actually think the Raiders could be a team to double move up. I'm not going to do that. However, I also do believe that we could look at the Browns moving up because they ended up going after Ashton Genty. And I do think that you can end up going after Jalen Milroe there and sitting him for a couple of years. The Titans need someone who's going to be a little bit more ready now. So I'm actually going to trade up with the Browns because first off, we need that 3rd round pick. We have a good enough range to where I think you can end up giving 138, maybe 117 in the mix. But the Titans end up pretty much recouping. We'll put 117 in there. Ended up recouping that 3rd round selection. The Browns end up moving up for a quarterback that they are going to end up sitting for a year behind maybe Jameis Winston and allowing him to grow and develop into the star that he should be. But actually, we do have another 3rd round pick that I'll need to trade for when I get to the Bills because actually that gives me more reason to have moved up because PFF has not adjusted for that. Praying to God I remember by that time, but We'll deal with it. Do not worry. If I don't do it, I will rip my hair out, but that's okay. Patriots ended up moving back, getting that extra third round selection. And I want to double check because I think Matt Judon was also traded. Okay, 85 is already in there. I wanted to double check that the Matt Judon trade was actually accounted for. We've got Kelvin Banks. And I think at this point, it is edge rusher. And then you could talk about another corner in there. But at this point, when you got Shedeur Stewart, Kamen Rucker on the table, you just can't say no to these guys. They're fantastic players with unbelievable value. I'd actually love the idea of Shedeur Stewart. He's 290 pounds. The thing that makes him so awesome is that he could be a pure edge, but he is so flexible. Can you imagine kicking him to the interior next to Christian Barmore for certain reps as well? I would love to see Mayo have his creative defensive mind be able to go to work and then let Shedeur Stewart absolutely annihilate everything in his path. At 36 for the New York Jets, I think this is a prime opportunity to potentially continue to bolster your weapons, tight end especially, because Rucker is just not the answer. It would be Harold Fannin. That's by far the next best tight end. And I don't think it's close. I really don't. Let's go after Harold Fannin here, who's, statistically speaking, one of the best, if not the best player in college football right now. As a tight end, he has 947 yards, pretty much a little bit over halfway throughout the year. Unbelievable talent there. I know that it's not the sexy pick, but, Harold Fannin Jr. after the catch is ridiculous. I really do think that, even if you want to continue passing on quarterback, and we do have other picks as well, it's just going to be far more worth it. For the Jaguars at pick number 37, we ended up going after offensive line, I believe. We actually moved up for Will Johnson, even better. Because at this selection, we can actually look at a quality offensive lineman, and that's Josh Conerly. Josh Conerly is like top 20 on quite a few people's boards, and I think that is like a reason in its own to be able to heavily focus on him at this spot. But the main reason is not based on how other people perceive him. When I ended up watching JT Tuimoloau versus Josh Conerly, it was almost like a chess match. Both of them had outstanding wins versus each other, which shows that they have some areas of weaknesses that they need to improve on. But there's not many tackles that could have a dominant win like Josh Conerly versus a 270-pound player. The potential is through the roof. If he has to play guard in the short run, I think that's okay. The anchor is a little bit of a concern, but the top end ceiling talent is unreal. At pick number 38 for the New Orleans Saints, I think this is the proper time to look at some defensive interior firepower. There's a ton of talent that's still left on the board, whether it be Derek Harmon, Tyleik Williams, or Deone Walker. Deone Walker is just a freak build. I think the Saints would be very intrigued to be able to have another very tall defensive interior that has a lot of pass rushing ability. That is what Deone Walker does best. And he's gotten better throughout the year. He had a pretty slow start, but Deone Walker is going to be my choice. You're going to build pretty much through the trenches, but you did end up getting your star receiver in the first round. The Vegas Raiders are sitting here at 39. You moved up for your top end quarterback, and I think that was a very smart move. I think this is the prime opportunity to just say, let's get Emeka and let's get the hell out of here. Emeka Egbuka goes to the Raiders. At 40, it's kind of gutting to not be able to get Emeka to the Titans, but at the same time, you have some crazy weaponry still here. You got Trey Harris, Ty Felton, Ricky White, Jaden Higgins, and also, you just have that third round pick as well. I think it's a great combination. So you went tackle, and then now we've traded back. I do still think that you could look at some quarterback options here. I think Miller Moss is severely underrated. I personally believe that he is the next best quarterback in the class. Garrett Nussmeier is getting a ton of love, but Garrett Nussmeier is not a day one quarterback. If I'm going to be honest, I posted plenty of clips on my X page, and that sounds low-key like a porno, but I don't know why Elon had to name it X. I digress. Garrett Nussmeier, I want to love him, but the inconsistency is absurd. He'll have some unbelievable throws, but this guy's processor is just not there in terms of being a pure passer. He forces way too many passes, and it's not that he doesn't have the capability to do so, because he does have a great arm that it really can put the ball in spots where not many quarterbacks can actually do that. But unfortunately, the game, so there's certain positions that if you perform well on a consistent basis, no one's going to care if you until you slip up, right? For quarterbacks, it's a little bit wishy-washy. You have the big time throw capabilities, and that's where you can also get some love. It's where the quarterback position is loved by a lot of kids. They want to be able to have the flash plays and stuff. But, it's one of those positions that consistency is so much more key than what we actually think about, because we think about the big splash plays. Garrett Nussmeier, the big splash plays. You talk about Quinn Ewers, the big splash plays. But the consistency is just not there. Miller Moss is the next best. So I'm going to actually elect not to go quarterback here and to focus on the wide receiver room. And Trey Harris is perfect for this. You guys know it. Trey Harris is just a damn good fit. I honestly personally believe that I'd want to move back, however, one more time and continue accruing draft capital. And looking at the options that are still available, we could go edge rusher here. But I think wide receiver is going to be a little bit better for us, because Princely Umamielen, still staying at Ole Miss, it's something that teams should move up for. To be fair, we still have some really good ones. Kyle Kennard, Kamen Rucker, etc. So you'd have to have a team that really wants an edge rusher. If Tampa Bay didn't go after one, which they did with Abdul Carter, ridiculous value. If you wanted to see a team like maybe the Niners, which I think even the Niners went after, they went after a tackle, but Niners already moved up. That's a guy who should be moved up for. Damn. I do got to admit, it's a pretty tough spot to move back from. I'm going to say that there are no buyers at this point. And you know what? We're going to actually go edge. I think the value is too good at edge. And you got Princely Umamielen. I think it would go before Kennard and Rucker in the real draft, but I also do think that you could see one of the others do that. I know you need wide receiver talent, but winning through the trenches is literally how you can actually dominate at the next level. And this is just best player available. You got your extra 3rd round pick. I think you can call it a day. Pick number 41 for the Dolphins. We probably went after a Kenneth Grant. KG's my route usually, and we did. A little bit early for KG. However, let's fix the offensive line. I love Donovan Jackson. I love Tate Ratledge. We're going to go Donovan Jackson here. By far one of the best interior offensive linemen in the country. At pick number 42 for the New York Giants, we went Drew Allar in the 1st round. Again, if you don't like that, feel free to substitute the quarterback of your choosing, because Pittsburgh would be happy with Allar or with Sanders. And, it is what it is, man. I do think a boundary corner, again, Ben Morrison is going to be returning in this, is not off the table with Davison Igbinosun, who is going to be a very physical, very talented corner, my number 18 player on my board. And that's number 18 after his worst performance, by the way. It hasn't even been updated for better performances since. I also do think that a second boundary wide receiver like Alec Iomaner would be a top tier addition. Can't really go wrong. There's 5 top receivers here, but I actually will be going Alec Iomaner, wide receiver out of Stanford. If you can end up getting over a yard per route run in one of the most garbage offenses on the entire planet, I think you've earned my respect. Pick number 43 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to see what we ended up doing. We went Malachi Starks in the 1st. We're going to continue this edge trend here in the 2nd. Who did I take JT Tuimoloau out to? Ooh, the Commanders. So I really do like the fact that if you can get Kamen Rucker, he is close to that 270-pound range even. And it's kind of the Bengals, I would say you want to go a little bit of interior presence if possible. But still, looking at the defensive interiors, I do think that's perfectly possible for us to do this as well. Because Derek Harmon's a punchy defensive interior. You look at Tyleik Williams, who is an extremely high floor defensive interior who has a good amount of size, right? I think BJ Hill's up for a contract, and even at that point, there's other guys as well. And Tyleik is a beast, man. I don't think that he gets enough respect. We're going to go Tyleik Williams and keep him in Ohio. And with the Carolina Panthers at pick 44, we ended up getting Travis Hunter in the 1st round. This is an easy 2nd pick for me. This is Kamen Rucker all day, every day, hometown hero. He's somebody who easily could go in the 1st round. Even though Virginia is not necessarily the most talented roster, it takes a talented player to get a 93 plus grade. And no, 93 grade is not how I base my opinion of Kamen Rucker. The fact is, he's someone who has consistently produced over his entire career. You could end up looking at the statistics here, by the way. Was at 8 plus, so it's 19 plus 41. That's 60 pressures last year alone. And he was coming off injured, had a tough week versus Georgia Tech. Because, I mean, he played like a couple reps versus Pittsburgh, got injured week 1, and then he ended up coming back and just, once it clicks, man. He's a fantastic edge rusher, someone who has my undying respect and has an excellent frame. This is a position that the Panthers definitely have looked for, and it's a position I'm happy to fill. The Cowboys at 45, I think I went Isaiah Bond in round number 1, and I did. Here in round 2, I could even see them going after Quinshon Judkins. But there are a lot of really talented running backs. I mean, if we end up getting Jonah Coleman in round 3, I think I can sleep at night. We just had a couple of issues with Quinshon this year in terms of, like, the past couple weeks, he's been in the sub 3 yards per carry. So I'm not fully on board for that over going after a defensive interior here. We'll get both in time, do not worry. But when you get Derek Harmon or TJ Sanders at this point, it's pretty obvious that you should go after someone like Derek Harmon. Again, just like a really solid pass rusher. The other guy who I want to mention who's not in here is Omar Norman Lott, the defensive interior from Tennessee. Pretty sure he has over 20% pass rush win rate. But I don't know why, because it's funnily enough, I think Trevor Sikkema's mock draft was where I ended up seeing him in the first round. And this is Trevor Sikkema's board. So I'm like, where on earth is Omar Norman Lott on this? But Derek Harmon's been extremely consistent in terms of popping off, even since he was at Michigan State. Pick 46 for the Colts. Defensive back, you guys know how much I love to take that for the team. We took Nick Emanwari in the first round, which he deserves so much respect and doesn't get any, so I'm happy to see that. Again, Ben Morrison is returning in this mock draft. So I will be looking at linebacker. I think I've done this the past 2 times as well. I look at Deontay Lawson, and I just fall in love with the athletic profile. I think they say he's 230. Oh, now they say he's 240. That's a little bit more close to it. He is ridiculously well built, and the only reason he's had any struggles, I mean, there are also games where he pretty much has none. He's just continuing to develop. Bama linebackers are guys who I like to roll the dice on and take a really heavy bet on, and Deontay Lawson was one of my favorite linebackers coming into the year. You could end up trading back here, if they're like we already did once with the Niners. And to be fair, the Niners could be another really good target to be able to jump a couple teams, or to jump even the Seahawks, who could be in the market again for another top tier edge defender that could kick to the inside on certain reps if you want to look at guys like Landon Jackson and Jack Sawyer. But I'm looking primarily at Kyle Kennard and Donovan Uzirowaku. And I mean, to be fair, I want to double check what I did with the Cardinals in the first round, probably Jalen Walker, which I did. If we did not go Jalen Walker, I would have said the Cardinals would be a key candidate for a massive move up here. The Philadelphia Eagles, though, they have that connection, right? You talk about Steichen, if Steichen's there. Steichen and not Howie, but Nick Baldiani, the Baldiani era. I think actually that is more likely than anything because, the guy who I'm about to get for this team, I don't think is going to be taken by them. Pretty sure, because I don't like taking linebackers in the second. But Baldiani is going to want to make a move up here. He gets aggressive sometimes. You guys know this. He moved up for Cooper DeJean last year. And I think he could do it again. He got Tyler Warren in the first. This is going to be your star edge rusher. And I don't think it's going to take the 2 seconds like they were talking about. Actually, this is a perfect opportunity as well. This 73, we're going to keep the 73 in this. We're going to trade the 88 to Washington. So keep that in mind. So 88 is not even part of this. We're going to trade both of these picks, and we're going to get maybe 115 back. It could be 150 as well. We're going to be polite and say 115. Again, very minute. But we will be also trading this pick to Washington. I mean, technically, it's saying that we could use that pick from San Francisco. That's a little rich. So we're going to end up making that move. Philadelphia moves up. And again, we need to trade this to Washington because I don't know why they have not factored in the trade because I think it was a third, but they ended up getting a fifth in return. Pretty sure, for Jahan Dotson. Pretty sure that's how it worked. So we're going to do that. So now the Eagles also have draft capital to move up later as well. But the Eagles have jumped multiple teams, including the one that they really need to watch out for in the Niners, to be able to select a top tier edge rusher. And you want to have someone who has some good flexibility. You can talk about Josiah Stewart here, but Josiah Stewart's too small. The guy I'm looking at is Kyle Kennard. He ended up having some issues with injury, like post-injury, which is this Bama game. Like, he ended up getting hurt, and he just wasn't the same player that he was versus LSU, which is, funnily enough, like, it's almost an antithesis in terms of the grade versus the performance. I thought he did a fantastic job versus LSU. And he actually is far better versus the run than I ever really thought he could be. You can talk about Ziruwaku here, who statistically has been absolutely destroying the ACC. But Kyle Kennard is an actual game changer. And I actually love the flexibility that he can bring, because is he not 255? He's 254. So he also has enough physical presence to be able to play with his hand in the dirt, but also has enough athleticism when he doesn't tweak his ankle, I believe, to be able to play out and about. So I like that flexibility, and he is by far the next best edge rusher on the board. Pick number 47 for the Buccaneers. We ended up going Abdul Carter in round 1, which is still ludicrous to me, but somehow we ended up doing it. Tight end is just not valuable enough at this point. I like Mason Taylor, but that's a third round kind of guy. So looking at the options here, we kind of did get a little bit unlucky in terms of how everything fell, but I still want to be able to evaluate a couple of positions. Defensive back at this point, you do have guys like Denzel Burke's not that cheeks, but I'm actually primarily looking at Decario Davis, because he's going to be someone who's extremely flexible, and this defense isn't necessarily hard pressed to be able to need a pure boundary corner the way maybe some other teams do that still have that need. I think this team can actually allow Decario Davis to float and be able to have a multitude of roles. 6'4", long arms. A year ago, I think he had 16 passes defensed as well. It's kind of ridiculous, but I don't know why they don't have that as a readily available statistic. It is what it is, but Decario Davis is someone who's very high IQ. It's just the change of direction skills he might need to. You need a little bit more flexibility in terms of the vision for his role, which would have been my dream pick for the Seahawks at this spot, because I would love for him to have been a quasi safety for him. But they drafted a tackle in round 1 that could also potentially play guard. I do think that you could look at another quality edge rusher or a quality linebacker. You could look at Deontay Johnson at this point. I don't think that Deontay is going to be the guy that the Seahawks overly value, because you spent a good amount of draft capital, and I hope they ended up sending that to the Titans, even though I do know I got to see this really quick. Like, let's just take a quick peek. Where the hell is Tennessee? I cannot. Am I blind? I'm probably blind. I don't even know where the hell the Tennessee Titans are. Did we take a receiver? Oh, that's why. I thought I traded back with the Titans again. Okay, I am not blind. So there's the Titans right there. I want to make sure. I thought they ended up sending like 135. I swear they did. I swear they sent 135 to Tennessee for where's the tight end at? Or the linebackers at? Where are they at? For Ernest. Of course, this is not even up to date. I assume that's what they sent. So keep that in mind as well. But they already have Ernest. Hopefully, I think they'll give him a contract as well. You could look at a quarterback here. This is the opportunity to get someone like Garrett Nussmeier that could work really well. It's a dark horse pick for the team. But let's look at defensive back here. I do think that someone like Xavier Nwankpa, he brings the heat the way that the Seattle Seahawks like to have in terms of an enforcer. And he is my number 29 player on my board. He's just somebody that is being misused by Iowa, which is just a rare thing. You don't see Iowa misusing defensive backs very often. But he's just someone that needs to be catered a little bit more to. He's not completely overly versatile, and I think it's okay to admit that. Pick number 49 for the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to look at edge rusher here. We ended up going up and drafting Arianti Urzuri, and now we can go after another quality edge rusher. And you got guys like Denis Dennis Sutton that I really do like. You got Tyler Barron on the board as well. But I'm looking primarily at Jack Sawyer here because I think he's going to be drafted relatively highly. And, another Ohio State edge rusher. This team's continuing to put free agent draft capital into that edge core, I think it's time to be able to continue enforcing it. But they do need corner help too. We can take a risk on a corner in round 3. I think the corner depth is better than the edge depth because I just know I'm going to continue taking them over the corners. Again, Ben Morrison returning in this. Pick 50 for the Chicago Bears. Could go after another offensive lineman here because it's not out of the realm of possibility to go after back-to-back offensive linemen, but I'm actually going to focus on the defensive interior here. And you got TJ Sanders, and I think that, last time it didn't really work with Pickens. It's going to work this time with TJ Sanders, who's extremely well-balanced between the run and the pass. Continue to get some youth on that defensive lines, and you pretty much spent all these picks on the trenches, but I think it actually ends up being worth it. For the Cardinals at pick number 51, we have ended up going after edge, and now it's time to continue looking at said defensive interior. I got hiccups now too, which is great. Not. But this is going to be Omar Norman Lott. This is going to be the Tennessee defensive interior. It's over 20% pass rush win rate. And we're going to give love to Thor Griffith and boost his draft stock. I don't think I would end up actually taking him, even though he had a really solid game versus Miami. But he's going to be my placeholder for Omar Norman Lott, Tennessee defensive interior, 20% pass rush win rate. So keep that in mind. The Chargers, we ended up trading back and ended up snagging another second-round pick while ending up getting Colston Loveland. Talk about a nasty, nasty deal right there that they ended up getting a really good compensation package on. I'm going to be looking at wide receiver and running back here, and I think the answer is pretty obvious. Even though you guys do a great job of being able to, replenish your running back core and utilize a wide variety, I think that Quinshon Judkins is just going to be too irresistible at 52. Again, he's had some issues, which is why he's pushed down a little bit in the deep running back class. But I think that at this point, there's just a certain moment where you end up saying enough is enough. He slid too far. The value's there. Let's take him. Pick 53 for the Falcons. I want to go after a second boundary corner. I'm double checking, but I'm 95% sure we went edge in the first with Mikael Williams. And, looking at the player, Jason Marshall's out for the year, by the way. That kind of sucks, but I'm going to go and I'm trying to debate if I want to go after Davison Igbinosun here. Igbinosun, not Igbinosun. Well, no, it is Igbinosun, but I digress. There are some corners that I really do like that I think deserve a lot of love on this team. And one of them is Jediah Barron. Jediah Barron's had a fantastic year overall. You can look at the statistics if you please. But he's just overall been someone who is so dynamic in a flexible role between slot and boundary. And that's a position, though both those positions, in my opinion, could be kind of battled for. And so I'm actually going to show him the love he deserves. Jediah Barron going at pick 53. Pick 54 for the Denver Broncos. We ended up going after wide receiver in round number 1, I believe, with Luther Burden. So here in round number 2, I still think left tackle is a position where I would be considering a player like Anthony Belton or Holland Pierce. Holland Pierce has done a phenomenal job against every team except Nebraska, which even versus Nebraska, I think it was only 2 pressures. So this dude has just been rock solid all year long. Like every single week, I pretty much write his name down. But this is the guy that is going to be an absolute darling to Sean Payton. It's Charles Grant. This dude is straight up unbelievable when it comes to being an athlete. We're talking about Terran Armstead level athleticism potential here. You know who liked Terran Armstead? Sean Payton. But he is a little bit on the lighter side. It could end up having to be a guard, but I don't think you guys are going to shy away from taking an unreal tackle here that has that guard possibility. Just based on the ridiculous athletic profile he brings to the table, it's going to be well worth it, especially if he ends up panning out as a left tackle. But as a guard prospect, I was ready to take him for the Baltimore Ravens with the next pick. So keep that in mind as well. For the Baltimore Ravens, we ended up taking LT Overton in the first. We are still going to be looking at the tackle room, but we're going to be going after a stud in Wyatt Milam. I mean, look at that. 0 pressures all year long. This dude's just a tackle that's going to have to play guard just because he has short arms. But He doesn't bring the athletic profile that Charles Grant does remotely, and Charles Grant could still end up being a tackle. He's just 300 pounds. But Wyatt Milam, he's a fantastic guard. He has that tackle possibility, but I would not be putting any sort of cash down on that. For the Indianapolis Colts, we already drafted a safety for him. We're actually going to draft a corner, and this corner is Davison Igbinosun. So we traded back and still got an absolute stud of a corner, Jordan Hancock, the placeholder, my number 18 player, Davison Igbinosun. Pick 57 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We drafted Shedeur Sanders in round 1. For those of y'all who think Shedeur should have went before Drew Allar, then we got Drew Allar. So it just depends if you want to swap the two. Again, I went off of my board specifically, not off of y'all's board. So I think that wide receiver 2 is the next best thing. And Ricky White's an absolute stud because he's also a special teamer. He ended up having 2 blocked punts. And he's just someone who I enjoy watching him play. I got to see if I ended up updating his grade in here, which I did because he was right up here. So where did I end up putting him? He's right here in the top 50 for me. So I really love his game. I really do love Jaden Higgins, though. I mean, Jaden Higgins is just kind of like a draft darling for me. And he brings just so much physicality to the table, and it works so well in this Arthur Smith offense. He's a solid blocker as well. I'm just going to go after my guy. Why not? You know what I mean? Like, just let's continue to reinforce that boundary. I also see a lot of Ricky White in the slot, so you might not necessarily be in that proper position for it. For the Bills, they ended up sending their 3rd round pick to the Browns. I told you guys I'd remember. Where the hell are the Browns in this? Cleveland. This is for Amari Cooper. So, what? Did they already they did not factor it in. There's no 3rd round pick here. The Browns didn't trade their 3rd round pick before. So, what? They don't even have Amari Cooper on the Browns roster? That is funny. That's crazy. How the hell? They still have Kadarius Toney? What in the actual fudge nuggets? All right, well, regardless, this is for Amari Cooper. So I just want to clarify that before we continue jumping in. And at this point, Kevin Winston is almost a lock for me. We went after edge in round 1, I believe. Oh, defensive tier with Walter Nolan. Got some good pushback for that because a lot of you like some Dwayne Carter. I still love the idea of being able to get a really solid rotation in there on Walter Nolan. I'd prefer as a starter. But I'm going to go after Kevin Winston here. And for the next selection, I will be looking at an edge potentially. And Landon Jackson's perfect for this, but I do think this is a prime opportunity to trade back and maybe be able to stack the depth a little bit more. So who's worth moving up for? Again, Ben Morrison is returning in this. Is Donovan Ezeuruwaku? That's the primary guy that needs to be taken in the second, in my opinion. A lot of good players. Josiah Stewart as well, but Ezeuruwaku is the guy who definitely belongs in this conversation. I do love Josiah Stewart, though. There's zero shade to him. It's just 6'1", 245. Even though I think that Ezeuruwaku is 245 as well. He's just slightly more NFL frame at 6'2", close to 250. You might just say it's an inch and 5 pounds. Pause. But there's just a different approach to the game that Donovan has as a run defender as well. Josiah Stewart's great. Again, not trying to take anything from him. He was a guy who was very high on. But looking at some teams that could be looking for a move up here for edge, to be fair, not many. You could look at the Commanders for trying to double up at edge rusher. You could also look at the Chargers for trying to get someone to be the long-term duo with Tuli Tuipulotu. But Tuli also is a little bit more Landon Jackson built. I don't really think that's going to be the case. You could look at the Chiefs. They just traded for Uche. You can go see them going after a Donovan Ezeuruwaku style of player here because they have 2 picks from 66 and 64. But I will say not necessarily. I'm not getting any bidders here. I'm really not. Now, quarterback-wise, I don't think anybody is really, like, the Nuss bus might get enough hype, but I just don't think that you got to value consistency at some point, right? Like, there has to be some form of respect for consistency that he doesn't bring to the table. We're going to have to end up forcing edge here. And I'm going to actually go Landon Jackson. Donovan Zirawaku actually isn't horrible for the Bills. Come to think of it, he's used to the cold climate. He's actually very similar to Von Miller in terms of the overall framework, in terms of the vastness of the role that he can play. So, you know what? I'm happy with those. Let's go full defense for the Bills on this one. Pick number 60 for the Green Bay Packers. We went after Siobhan Revell in round number 1. Here in round number 2, it's another team I could totally see going after edge rusher, and I know they like their big athletic freaks, and that is Landon Jackson to a T. The Commanders at 61. Took an edge in round number 1 with JT Tuimoloau. Here in round number 2, we're going to go after a corner. And, well, maybe. I mean, I keep forgetting the fact that this cornerback class just drops off a fucking cliff. It sucks, but it is what it is. You know, Quincy Riley's not a horrible choice here. I think he deserves a lot more credit than what he actually gets. Still coming off, he's still banged up, man. He is not 100%. And you could tell that, too, just based off of how he plays. Mansour Delane, a lot of people love Mansour Delane. Like, love him. I'm not there just yet. Of course, I haven't reevaluated him for this year. I've got the quarterbacks pretty much reevaluated at this moment, and a lot of the top end players for me. But, you know, Mansour Delane actually might be a good pick at this point. And because there's a big cult following for Mansour. Let's do it. Mansour Delane, boundary corner out of Virginia Tech. 62 for the Texans. Did I go after a guard in round 1? I did with Tyler Booker. Here for the Texans at 62, I'm going to actually look at Dante Corleone or Aeneas Peebles. There's a lot of good guys in your rotation. You guys have brought this up before. But if I'm going to be honest, I think we need to understand that you need a long-term option. And I think you can handle a 290-pound defensive interior, because Aeneas Peebles is just absolutely dominant. He is just ridiculously talented. And he's going up against, like, Georgia Tech's offensive line is actually very underrated, but you're seeing him perform very well versus quality offensive lines. So we're going to be going after Aeneas Peebles here. At pick number 63, we're back with the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, we have so far Colston Loveland as well as Quinshawn Judkins. That's a nasty, nasty duo to add there. I do think you could look at the cornerback room here. And you could just say, like, I can fix him with Denzel Burke. I just think he shot himself in the foot too many times. I'm uncomfortable with that. You could go for a boundary receiver here. Realistically, Trey Harris is still on the board. That is somebody that could easily work with Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston for the future. Like, that is somebody that might just be worth it. That physical built receiver. I will say, though, I really hope that that Brendan Rice can succeed. And actually, the one thing I don't see in this offense is a quality after the catch receiver. So I'm actually going to move back and try to get Sam Brown out of Miami, because I really, really like him. And I'm going to see some teams that potentially want to move up for offensive line, especially because the Chiefs, I think, would be a great spot for a guard. We already took a tackle with them, though, so we got to be careful. But I do think that a guard should be at least on the horizon. We ended up taking a tackle with the Jaguars before. They could be in the market for another guard, right? We ended up taking Josh Connerly. I do love Josh Connerly as a tackle, though, more than an actual guard. The thing is, there's not many teams that should be that desperate to move up for offensive line. We could also see teams getting excited to move up for the remaining wide receivers, like Jalen Royals. You could say Trey Harris as well. If there's a team that's going to move up for Trey Harris, it might end up being the Jaguars. But I also really want to give some shout outs to some other options as well. The Jets are in prime position to move up for a quarterback. And, you know, I will be honest, actually, I do like the idea of the Jets jumping the Panthers for a quarterback. So we're going to let the Jets be able to get their guy at 36. Let's double check. 36, they ended up going Harold Fannin. So they got defensive interior as well as tight end right now. So we are going to be moving back, and I think this move at most would take like 140. So I think that's all we're going to do. Maybe we toss in 234. Do the math on your own. But the Jets are going to move up, and this is the team where I have more confidence in Garrett Nussmeier, because you don't need to start him right away. And Aaron Rodgers has already shown that he's been able to mold a player like Jordan Love, who also was a little bit inconsistent. And I think Garrett Nussmeier has that high-end ceiling. Let's put him with Rodgers and see what happens. Pick number 64 for the Chiefs. Defensive interior. Man, we've depleted it, haven't we? We have. I mean, to be fair, we can still go Dante Corleone. I'm just not fully sold on him. But Shamar Turner as well. Shamar Turner finally is starting to turn it on, by the way. I mean, the poor guy's an edge rusher that they stuck on to defensive interior. Like, this is just somebody who belongs as a big edge, or just like, he's just a weird tweener. So that's why I like him, but not 64. Tight end wise, again, we've discussed it. Not a great choice. Running back, there's a ton of them. I'd probably prefer to move back for that. We drafted a tackle in Nelson. So was it Jack Nelson? It was. Yeah, it's Jack Nelson. So I actually do want to be able to evaluate a possible edge rusher here. And somebody who I want as an edge, it could be Ashton Gillette. Ashton Gillette's a baller, man. He talk about producing. I was talking about 60 pressures with Kamen Rucker. This dude had more than that last year. He had a little bit of a slow start to the year, but this dude also can kick to the inside, and I actually like that flexibility. Let's go Ashton Gillette. Like, he's someone who I don't put enough respect on his name, and I think he'd be a really quality, valuable asset for the team. At 65 for the Panthers, I think it's time to go after the QB, and I'm going after my number 4 QB in the class. That's Miller Moss. I know people just don't like him, and you know what? You're not going to. If you don't like him, you're probably not going to ever. But I genuinely believe in this guy. Every time I watch him, I try my best to knock him down further and further. I watch him with a negative bias. And for some reason, this dude continues every single time to show me that he has something there. And the high-end throws are absolutely ridiculous. He throws high-end throws at a very high rate as well. So it just really is the, hey man, when you start failing, don't go into a downward spiral, which is more so game to game that he just doesn't bounce back rather than rep to rep. So I do like that about him a lot, but you know, he just needs to continue to progress. He had this is his first year starting. Like, he is very new to the position. He had like a start or two in 2019, had one start at the end of last year where he threw 6 touchdowns, and then had 6 touchdowns, and then he ended up starting out this year. So, very raw player, but someone who I thoroughly believe deserves more respect than he gets. For the Kansas City Chiefs, this is where we're going to look at a running back like Omari and Hampton. It's pretty obvious when you start bringing in guys like Kareem Hunt that, you know, are going to be kind of, you know, those backup journeymen who fill in the time being. You need to get yourself someone who's very reliable. Omari and Hampton is perfect for that. He's been a workhorse there for North Carolina. I think he'll be a great one there for KC. At pick 67 for the New England Patriots, we've taken edge. We've taken also an offensive tackle. I think right now you could try to just continue developing the wide receiver room. Why not get a Trey Harris? Continue to just build your receiving core with more quality, large, heavy receivers. You got Polk. You also got Javon Baker, and now you got Trey Harris. Go best player available, and just don't overthink it. At pick 68 for the Los Angeles Chargers, Trey Harris would have been my selection by moving back, and I'm trying to remember exactly what I was kind of hoping for. Actually, a really good option is to bring Josiah Stewart into the defense that he was so good at last year. He's even better this year, so maybe it's like, haha, screw you, but this dude's just been absolutely rock solid statistically this year. I think that it's almost impossible to resist. Pick number 69 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've already gone after offensive line, and I want to say we've also gone after corner, if my memory serves me correct. No, we went after tackle and corner. Yes, correct. We moved up for Will Johnson. So Will Johnson, Josh Connerly, that's one hell of a duo. In my opinion, that's a hell of a duo. You could look at running back. If I'm going to be real, ETN has just been pretty much moved to a non-factor. No clue what the hell is going on there. But I don't think edge rusher's out of the question either. Like, legitimately, this edge class is super stacked. Like, super stacked. But looking at the players who are still available, I could see you guys almost doubling up at corner if you wanted to. Or you could also double down on the offensive line. And with Tate Ratledge here, I might be willing to move back, but Tate Ratledge, I'm going to force Connerly to be a tackle. I think I'm going to do that. We're going to force Connerly to be a tackle. We're just getting best player available at this point. That's Tate Ratledge. At number 70 for the New Orleans Saints, I'm going to go after another right tackle that they're going to move to a different position. It is Marcus Bowe, friend of the show. He has been fantastic there for Purdue, and so we're going to give him the love he deserves. We're going to use Ernest Green as the placeholder, though. Ernest Green's not going to be featured in this episode. So just remember, that is Marcus Bowe, my number 37 player on my board. At number 71 for the Jets, I think this is a good team to be able to look at potential right tackle and then even right guard, because right now they have someone who's sitting at right guard who should be playing left tackle next year, and that is Olu Fashanu. Armand Membu's the next dude who I'm like very, very excited for. He's had a big progression step this year. His run blocking is absolute ass, but that's solely because Missouri doesn't know how to teach guys how to, like, their offensive blocking scheme's weird. You can absolutely look at the quarterback position again, but we already did jump and got Garrett Nussmeier, the Nuss Bus. So we're good there. We got our tight end. We got our defensive interior. I mean, you could also look at a boundary corner here. Like, this is where you could snipe Denzel Burke and say, hey, we're going to figure out what the hell's wrong with you. And honestly, I think that's a pretty solid idea. So let's go with Denzel Burke, because he is a first-round corner who just randomly failed like a mofo versus Oregon. Like, he was doing a solid job this year, and then just boom. Like, he hasn't allowed 100 yards outside of that game. I think he's allowed 99 yards. I think it was 173 versus Oregon. He's allowed 99 yards since, or in total, for the rest of the year. Don't know what the hell happened, but for a team that's losing DJ Reed, you might end up getting a steal if you can figure out how to save your team from having to deal with Denzel Burke. For the Titans, again, you could look at quarterbacks here for sure, but like, look at the depth of quarterback in this class. I personally would just take one in the fourth. Just wait, get a Dylan Gabriel if you want to. He might be 6 foot. He's not even 6 foot. They say he's 6 foot. He's not 6 foot. He's like 5'11". He might be 5'11", but this dude's an absolute fucking baller. Like, that's the truth. That's the straight up truth. Him, Fafita, both these guys are sub 6 foot. They're both ballers. Jackson Dart doesn't really wow me, but you know, it is what it is. People like him. Connor Wegman's been atrocious this year, but you can get Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck most likely. Then, like, it's just like, Beck's actually, you know what? To be fair, Beck has not been good at all, but for the third round, he's been pretty good. And same thing with Quinn. Like, I'll say that, but I think this is a late third, early fourth selection between these guys. I'd prefer to look at receiver. So we ended up going, what did we do in the second round? I want to double check just to make sure. We went after edge. So we've gone after both sides of the line of scrimmage. Let's go after a wide receiver here. Ricky White, Ty Felton, and Jalen Royals. Jalen Royals is an absolute freak show. He's a baller. This is just somebody, he's also improved so much that, like, he was great last year. It had an awfully slow start to this year. I'm going to give him the love he deserves. This dude's a freak. And he had over a 60% contested catch rate last year, and I think on his career as well. Well deserving of, he's going to be a steal. It's just so hard to say when he's going to go. At 73 for the Colts, this is where we're looking at the linebacker with Deontay Lawson. But I want to be able to double check because my memory is failing. Oh, we went Igbinosun. Man, can you imagine? Eamon Wari and Igbinosun and Deontay Lawson. God, man, the friggin' Colts just feasted in this mock draft. Ridiculous. Why the hell did the Colts have that pick, by the way? Did we trade up with Washington? Like, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be Washington's pick for, was that not supposed to be Washington's pick? Where the hell is Washington? Oh, no. No, they have. Oh, right. We traded up with Philly. I'm tripping balls. I'm like, yeah. So it's Philly trading up. Damn. Yeah, we just feasted that. Good stuff. Pick 74 for the Giants. We got our quarterback. We got a weapon. We actually could end up drafting a developmental tackle here. And you could take Emory Jones and see if you can manufacture something out of him. But I love Armand Membu. At this point, take your shot on him. He is probably going to be a guard. but he's improved so much as a tackle that you might be very, very lucky and end up getting yourself a real quality right tackle there. Shout out to Marcus Bryant, former SMU Pony as well, left tackle from Missouri. He's not bad at all. So keep him in mind too. Pick 75 for the Cincinnati Bengals. So we've gone after defensive interior and defensive back. I think it's time we need to focus on the offensive side. I'm going to look for a longer term option as well on the boundary. It's pretty much down to those two. You guys know how much I love Ricky White and Ty Felton. Like, Sam Brown's a beast, but it just kind of overlaps with the weapons that they already do have. I could see them try to revamp their corner core again with another corner. Like, you got Max Hairston here, who I think is fantastic. He's not out for the year, if I'm not mistaken, but he'll be back. He's a really, really good player. But Quincy Riley is someone who is just so damn flexible as well. He's super duper smart. And when he's been healthy, like, he's been better. And I love that about him too. So actually, you know what? Let's go Quincy Riley. Let's do it. Getting yourself a ton of defensive back talent is never a bad idea. It's always a position that's churning, and it's always a position that needs more talent. And speaking of a team that could have loved Quincy Riley, we have the Rams. So Rams in the first round went Josh Simmons. You guys know how I roll. But here in round number 2, you could look at a quarterback. You could develop Quinn Ewers and see what happens. Like, that's not impossible. Like, I could totally see that happening. And to be fair, I think it's valid. For a team like the Rams, they're willing to overdraft just to be able to get the talent. Quinn Ewers is going to be the guy. Pick number 77 for the Cowboys. We've ended up going after defensive interior as well as wide receiver. We're going to go running back here. And I foreshadowed this earlier. We're actually going to go Jonah Coleman. Jonah Coleman's like the most ridiculously underrated back in the entire country. This dude's straight up, like, I'm trying to remember, what team did I watch him against? I'm trying to think of what corner. Oh, he trucked over Will Johnson twice in a row at the start of the game. So, just saying. He's a really damn good back, man. He is an unbelievably good back. One of my favorite guys coming into the year. Where is he right now? Because I haven't updated my running back grades, so you guys will see how much I loved him at the start of this year. Where the hell is this guy? And I knock their grades, by the way. What the crap? I mean, I'm probably blind as hell. Like, that is what it is. But he's somewhere in here, okay? Like, I'm just blind, okay? He's somewhere in here. I'm like, what the hell? But regardless, I mean, I fell in love with the dude this year. He's, 47. Wow. I didn't even know that. Holy Toledo. But really, really good player. At pick 78 for the Indianapolis Colts, we've gone after Igbenogson. We've gone after Lawson. I honestly think you could go after another defensive back here because I just love him. But, like, let's hold off on that. I think this is going to be the prime position to be able to trade back. Like, personally, I just don't see it. You could go after another edge rusher here, but we are kind of depleting down the edge core. So let's get the hell out of this round, right? Like, I just don't think that's going to be very valuable to us. Like, let's just try to continue moving back and maybe even acquire future draft capital instead. So who wants to move up? I think that if you are in the mood to go after a guard, Emory Jones is going to be a real quality guard. Like, a real quality guard. So I honestly think the Bears, dark horse team to move up here. We'll address like the Lions pretty much 4 times in a row, but also the Bears could move up for Ricky White. I like that idea. Actually, because the Bears kind of need both of those, I can see the Bears being a team that potentially trades future draft capital for this. Like, it would only, for me, if I were the Colts, I'm trading 78 maybe for like 154 and a future 5th. Like, I'm perfectly happy with that selection. That way, like, you just get more draft capital. You could end up making it 148. Like, I feel like you could end up pretty much toying around with this. But for the Bears, you are kind of in win now mode. Again, feel free to recalculate this shit on your own. But I'm actually going to have the Indianapolis Colts, like, I don't see the value right now. Move out and pivot yourself. But for the Bears, they need 2 positions. They're going to need interior offensive line, because we already drafted 1, but we still need a center, and that's Jonah Savania's breadbasket, in my opinion. A lot of people think he could be a real quality center. And left tackle, I trust Karan Amagaji for the time being. So I honestly am looking between Emory Jones and Anthony Belton. Anthony Belton's going to be an absolute freak show. He's a freight train, but I honestly really want to see Emory Jones as a guard. He's failed as a tackle, and it's kind of a shame. He was really good last year, but he's failed as a tackle, and he belongs as a guard. We know that he's like very capable. He was a lot of people's offensive tackle one, including myself at the start of the year. So we're going to get a full tackle offensive line, but Savania is going to be the center, which again, he's not been projected by me to center, but even by NFL Stock Exchange. I'm going to trust those guys. Then you got Emory Jones at guard. You got Karan Amagaji at tackle. I think this is a strong foundation for you to continue building off of. You set all the picks on offensive line, but again, we also have pick 82. So we're going to have a weapons pick in there as well. At pick 79 for the Buccaneers, this is where I feel comfortable going after a tight end. And looking at the options that do present themselves, the one I love the most is Jake Brenningstool. This dude is he's just not used enough, but this dude's a freak show. I think he's going to continue rising as, we'll see if they make the playoff this year, but I think Jake Brenningstool is going to be a backbone of the whole entire offense there for the Buccaneers. So we've ended up going after edge rusher. What do we do in the second? Defensive back and now tight end. For the Seahawks, we went tackle for them as well as defensive back. At this point, I'm actually going to go after a flexible edge rusher. We're going to use Denis Dennis Sutton as the placeholder here, but it's going to be, why am I forgetting the name? Tyler Barron, edge rusher out of Miami. At 81 for the San Francisco 49ers, we went after tackle. We went after edge. We're going after corner here, and that's where Maxwell Hairston's high upside is going to come into play. You're going to pair him up with Renardo Green for the future, but you have, I believe, 3 corners up for contract. 82 for the Bears. We're going after receiver. We've went after 2 offensive linemen and 2 defensive linemen. Now it's time to get a receiver. And you got Ty Felton here, you got Ricky White. Which one do you want to replace the slot with Keenan Allen? I'm going to take the higher ceiling player with Ricky White. You can't go wrong, though. Both of them are fantastic. Pick number 83 for the Arizona Cardinals. We went after edge. We went after defensive interior. Now I'm going to go after receiver. I know it makes people grouchy. I love you guys for it. But I don't really see a true after-the-catch threat. And that's Samuel Brown. Sam Brown is he was just unbelievably talented at Houston after the catch. This dude is that type of guy to get the ball in his hands and just take it to the house. That's exactly what I think you need in this offense. Get someone who's a very reliable, not Greg Dortch, but someone who is 6 foot, 200 pounds, and can still take it to the house. That is going to be Samuel Brown. At pick 84 for the Detroit Lions, I do think another boundary wide receiver is not a bad idea for them. We ended up trading up in the first round to be able to select Nick Scordon. I do think that the other position besides boundary receiver that you need is guard. And guess what? There's some really good ones still on the board, like Jaden Roberts, and then you could also use those centers as a variable guard. You could also look at tackles as variable guards. And honestly, if you want to work with one, I'm going to wait for pick 95 for Xavier Truss. That dude is just a freak show. He's 6'7", though, but he's such a good guard. It's kind of ridiculous. He's been better as a tackle too, but I'm actually going to go for another boundary receiver to add to Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown and company. And that receiver, it is either Ty Felton or it's Ja'Cory Brooks. He's flourished at Louisville, but his drop rate, I will admit, is worth me looking at Ty Felton and selecting him. But number 85 for the New England Patriots, they ended up selecting Trey Harris. So you got Trey Harris. Second round went Shamar Stewart. And then in the first round, traded back and ended up selecting Kelvin Banks. So really solid selections overall. I do think that you could even look at another linebacker just to continue developing how that whole entire system is going. But I think you guys also agree that interior offensive line is you could end up throwing another tackle piece in there, like Anthony Belton, who could be a guard, who could be a tackle. He's statistically built to be a tackle, right? 6'6", 336. But you also have a tall quarterback. You don't have to really worry about the what's it called? The Kyler Murray effect where you can't see over the offensive line. I actually like the idea. Let's just continue throwing at the offensive line and seeing what sticks, right? You got a bunch of guys who are tackle guard hybrids, and seeing which guys actually can land a tackle. I think that Caden Wallace should be that right tackle spot or the right guard spot. I think that you should have Calvin Banks at the left tackle spot or the left guard spot, whichever one Anthony Belton and him like have the best combination at. And then you have like Layden Robinson as a good backup because he's developmental, man. He needs more time to develop, or put him to center. I think that there's just a lot of youth that you need to infuse in that offensive line. And it's not something that I don't think is fully fixed. You need to continue throwing at it and go best player available. At pick 86 for the Denver Broncos, we went after left tackle with Charles. Was it Charles Cross? It's not Charles Cross. Charles Grant. Charles Cross is back in the day. But I'm going to look at tight end here. We had the thoughts about it earlier, and we already went one tight end in this round. Gunnar Helm is the guy who's most intriguing, but I love Mason Taylor. He's like a double move freak. He's just super smooth with it, and I think that's going to have a lot of value to Sean Payton. Double checking that my dumbass didn't select him earlier, because just deep down I feel like I would have, but no, I did not. So now we got 2 receiving threats and an offensive tackle. At 87 for the Ravens, they went after both offensive line, right? I'm double checking that. We went offensive line with Wyatt Milam as well as edge rusher. So another position I think they can get is an actual depth safety who also can potentially play slot. I actually love Xavier Watts, not to play the slot role, but to be able to have that ball hawking defensive back there. Going back to Notre Dame is never a bad idea. He's someone who led the country in interceptions just a year ago. Pick number 88 for the Commanders. I want to get offensive line. I'm going to go Blake Miller. Blake Miller is a solid tackle. He's just kind of boring. And I don't think boring tackles get selected until the 3rd. But more offensive line you get, the better, just simply put. And we got a free pick from Philly. So I'll take it. Pick number 89 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We went after, did we go after wide receiver? We went after quarterback. I'm trying to remember in round 2, we went after Jaden Higgins. So we got those 2. You could look at a running back for the future because, again, this is a very run-heavy offense. And to be honest, I just say wait till round 4 and select Caleb Johnson. This dude's just a freak show. Honestly, to be fair, I don't know if he's going to make it to round 4. Oh, you know what? I love the idea of Caleb Johnson staying in silver or in gold and black. Let's go with it. This is an Arthur Smith offense. Najee's up for a contract. I don't know if we're going to pay him. Like, he's having a good year to where it's like, you might actually have to pay him. But let's continue on here. Pick number 90 with the New England Patriots. We're back again. We already drafted receiver for you guys. I feel like we have a lot rolling. Let's go after the tight end room, though. Mitchell Evans at this point is worth the roll of the dice. He's just not necessarily, there's not enough statistics of him to be able to like really project him this year. And is he a true junior? He's a senior. So I think that he's going to be one of those guys that you have to overdraft compared to the actual statistics. But the whole entire Notre Dame offense has been pretty damn cheeks. So I'm going to let that slide. At 91, this is the Amari Cooper pick. This is either going to be Ja'Cory Brooks or, well, primarily Ja'Cory Brooks. So we're actually going to go Ja'Cory Brooks here. I really like Ja'Cory. Bo Collins is another name that I really like to mention in here, but he's not going to be the option. We're going to let Jimmy Horn Jr. be the placeholder value, though, but we're going to be going after my number 41 player in the class, Ja'Cory Brooks. At number 92 for the Green Bay Packers, we went after edge. We went after corner as well. Are there any more tackle guard hybrids? Xavier Truss. I know that piss off all. Oh my God. I did not realize Holland Pierce was that big. You could look at a Johnny Cornelius in this situation, but realistically, let's also look at the best player available, and that's going to be this linebacking core. So looking at the best guy, I think Jahan Campbell has the most potential, and I think it's worth developing him behind Edgerrin Cooper. He's a freak athlete. He's worth the roll of the dice. Again, number 93 for the Commanders, we went after tackle, we went after edge, we went after defensive back as well. Double checking, we went after defensive back with Mansour Delane. I do think linebacker is a good move. Bobby Wagner's not going to be there forever. You got Danny Stutzman here. Just don't overthink it too much. Pick number 94 for the Houston Texans. Might go another offensive interior. If I'm just going to be real with you, like, it would not be a bad use of your draft capital. You got Dante Corleone here. And you got Shamar Turner here. It's just pick your poison. I'm going to go Shamar Turner because he's a little bit more freaky. Just, have him be flexible. He's actually an edge rusher that's playing some defensive interior. I know we already drafted defensive interior as well, but it's just a position where I want to throw a couple guys at it. You got a 290 and a 300 pounder. It's just continue to throw stuff there until you see what sticks. It's a move the Bears did twice with Gervin Dexter as well as Zach Pickens. And imagine if they just went Zach Pickens and not Gervin Dexter. You could also say, imagine if they went Gervin Dexter and not Zach Pickens. I respect that. But Shamar Turner is someone who I think I really want him to go to a defensive scheme that just makes, that will use guys properly. And I actually have a ton of trust in D'Amico. Pick number 95 for the Lions. I mentioned this earlier. We're going after an interior offensive lineman. And honestly, Jaden Roberts makes a ton of sense here. I want to deep down, I so want to go Xavier Truss, but that's also someone you can get later on. Jaden Roberts is too good to pass up on at this point. Leaving 96 for the Kansas City Chiefs. This I'm actually going to end up having be Xavier Truss, though. If you really want to switch him, Lions fans, feel free to. He's just super mobile, but he belongs as a guard who can also fill in as a tackle. Knowing the Chiefs, they might end up even having him compete at tackle there with Sua Matea as well as Nelson. 97 for the Vikings. We've already gone. Let's see, what have we done for the Vikes? Oh man, I feel so bad. They have no picks. What do we do for Minnesota, man? Where the hell are they? Oh, we ended up going Azariah Thomas. That is kind of the big position to target for him. Running back, though, is kind of key for me. Super key. I think that going after a top-tier back like Kyle Monangai and Trey Henderson, Ollie Gordon. Let's go after Ollie Gordon. That's just great return on investment. At 98 with the Miami Dolphins, we have already addressed some offensive line help. We've already addressed some defensive line help as well. It's not meaning that the offensive line can't be helped anymore, but I honestly think about getting some more size in the receiving room. I'm actually looking at Pat Bryant here, who's been a very, very talented wide receiver there for Illinois. He's come out of nowhere. He deserves a lot of respect and a lot of love. Leaving number 99 also to the Dolphins. And I think a secondary safety. You guys have talked about it. I think it's very smart to be able to have one. And the range of Keon Saab is definitely worth taking at this point. So we're going to go Keon Saab there. At 100, you got the Los Angeles Rams. We've gone after tackle, and then here in the third round, we ended up going after Quinn Ewers. We're going after a defensive back at this point, and I want to go after someone who has a little bit of size, a little bit of production, and that is going to be Tommy Hill, cornerback out of Nebraska. And then ending off the draft, we have the Indianapolis Colts, who got this as part of their first-round trade back with the Niners. And we've gone after a linebacker. We've gone after safety. We've gone after corner as well. So not a ton of positions to take from. And the quarterback class, there's just nobody that's worth bringing in here in case you don't fully believe in Anthony Richardson. So I'd actually just go after the best player available or trade out at this point. And I guess there's so many good players. You got guys like Kyron Lacey. Let's see if there's going to be a team that wants to move up to end off this draft. Who needs a receiver? How about the Titans? What did we do with them at 72? I think we got a receiver, but we went after Jalen Royals. Let's get another receiver for him. It's a super short range trade. It's literally going to be like 251. We force it through. The Titans then end up getting their double receiver. You can select which one you want, but I'm going to go after Kyron Lacey because he brings a much bigger profile. So that is going to be it. Let me know what you guys think. We got to scroll down to the bottom so you guys see a little recap right there. But I love you guys. See you on the far side.